And this is what we are looking at. So this is an opportunity just to put together a quick reference guide for yourself that is a way to catalog, document, and get a feel for each of the different materials that we'll be using. And if you've got the packet, you'll have an array of graphite, charcoal, a layout pencil, and some water-soluble colored pencils, as well as a water brush, sharpener, eraser, some blending tools, sharpening tool, and just hunt around your house for things you can use to blend. So I've got a makeup sponge, some Q-tips, cotton ball, tissue. All of these things work great. And we're going to start with the graphite. And you'll notice that graphite pencils, any kind of drawing set, has a set of letters and numbers on the back. So these are 2B, HB, and 2H, and that indicates how hard or how soft the pencil is and how much graphite you'll be leaving on the surface. The softer the graphite, the darker the mark, because there's less binder, it's leaving more of a trace. So going through, and I'm going to do this in order of harder to softer. So the 3 pencils that came in the kit are pretty representative of the middle of the range. If you get a professional kit, it can go up to a 9B, a 10B, indicating hardness or softness. And what I'm doing, I'm just laying down some marks, cross-hatching, so they layer on top of each other. I really don't want to put too much pressure onto the graphite right now. I'm working on one of the half sheets of cold pressed watercolor paper. It's got a little bit of a texture to it, a little bit of a tooth. I'm just going to write next to it what this is. So this is the HB graphite. I'm going to, or the, this is the 2H graphite. Going to move up to the HB, which is a little bit softer. And as you can immediately see, it's also a little bit darker. So it handles a little bit more smoothly in some ways. It's leaving more of itself on the page. It's filling in the tooth. And that is the HB. Going to go slightly softer still up to the 2B. And this should go on, yes it does, this should go down even darker, softer, and a thicker line too, because it's a softer tool than the 2H or the HB. So this is a 2B graphite. And because I'm going to be precise, going to get rid of that. I'm going to switch from the graphite to the charcoal. And here they've abandoned, no, they have not abandoned, they have added to the numbering system. So a 2B here is a medium and a 4B is a soft. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to start with the 2B. I'm going to lay down a little bit of material going in both directions. This is a charcoal. I'm also going to experiment with how it blends. So I'm going to lay down just a little bit, get some on the page. I'm going to take a Q-tip, spread it out a little bit. If I want to create a kind of value scale going from dark to light, we can then experiment by adding more charcoal here, stretching that down a little, and continuing to blend. So we do this as a way to try to get a range of values so we can create a sense of volume, sense of materiality, the illusion of something existing in space. Okay. Put that kid down and go for the 4B. Softer, therefore darker, and even more material to blend. Because it's softer, it also has a tendency to break apart more readily. I'll lay this down. I'm going to use my makeup sponge. Again, I'm just experimenting with different things that I can use to move the material around on the page. And because this is the cold pressed watercolor paper, it does have a fairly substantial tooth. So you can see kind of residing on the top layers of the paper. When I say tooth of the paper, it's as though if you were to look at a cross section of the surface of the paper, you got ridges and valleys. And so the ridges are going to catch the medium as it goes by. And the more medium that you put on, or the more the media that you put on, or the wetter it is, or the looser it is, the more likely it is to rest in those valleys. And so the darker your mark will be. And some of this again. Layout pencil. This is compressed carbon. So very similar to, I'd say, a 4B pencil. It's a little bit oilier, just has a different binder in it, different medium. Everyone has a different combination of watercolor pencils if you got one of the sets from me. So go through, you should have 4 or 5 colors, and just see the difference between what it looks like dry. So this is dry WC pencil, and wet. And again, like the charcoal, run it through its paces in terms of blending. See what you can get it to do. The water pencil, or the water brush that everyone who got a packet should have. And again, if you don't have a packet, you can easily substitute just a regular watercolor brush for this. But if you do have this, fill up the reservoir with water, give it a squeeze, and we're good to go. So the thing I love about watercolor pencils is they are incredibly flexible in terms of how they can be used. So you can use it just as a dry pencil. You can go in, add some water, get some fun spread going on. You can also go back in to the wet page, add some more pigment that way. But these are great, fun tool to have on hand. And then I mean, go ahead, try it with a few different colors. And then see what happens when you blend. So let's say I've got my blue coming from one side, my pink coming from another. I'm gonna rinse this out. You may want just a cup of rinse water as well. So if I'm pulling the pink from one side, give it a quick rinse, pulling the blue from another, seeing what happens when they meet and mingle in the middle. And if you've got room on the card, which I do, just any other kinds of drawing media that you might have on hand. So adding a ballpoint pencil, letting that be part of your vocabulary, part of the material catalog. Ballpoint pen. I've got a trusty crayon. And going back to the graphite too, seeing what happens when you try to get the spread of values. So going from dark to light. If I'm laying down the 2H, which again is a harder pencil, noticing that the pressure needs to change, the density of the marks, how many marks are laying on top of each other needs to change to get it to go from dark to light. So run yourself through just a really simple value scale for each one of these. And we haven't talked about the erasers yet. If you got the kit, it came with a plastic eraser. Unwrap it. Recommend sliding the cover off. We'll talk about in the meeting, we'll talk about other ways to manipulate this. I love cutting them into little pieces, but you can start to remove some of your graphite that way as well to get a greater range of value. Do my HB. This is also a chance to use the blending stump that's in here. can use this to drag some of the graphite down. Soften those transitions between shades, between values. And then finally with the 2B, getting a sense of how much darker that is and how much softer it is. I'm gonna lay down some really light marks there, and I haven't used a tissue yet, so I'm gonna just see what I get when I blend that way. I'm gonna erase some of that out. And going back in, darkening up a little on this end. So start here. This is a way to, again, just introduce yourself to the materials. If you haven't seen them yet, if you haven't used them, get them out of the box, get them out of the bag, and get them going. So I'm going to put in just a quick value scale there. Here it's purely, I'm just using a scribble. Play with the density of the mark. Going from light to dark. And Crayola's Finest. Probably the most challenging of all these to do a value scale with. And there we are. Excellent. So thanks, and I will see you soon. Cheers.